Good afternoon, folks. It is Micah with Southern Staffing Group, and as you know, we service the field service industry, and part of that is understanding the accreditations that are out there. And I've got a gentleman by the name of Thomas Wire, who you see on the screen now. Goes by Tom, who is actually a NETA Level 4 technician who has agreed to share his knowledge with us. And so without further ado, Tom, thank you for joining us here. And I'll start off with just a quick question for you. How in the heck did you end up in Army Prime Power?
Well, first off, it's a pleasure to be here. But I started off Army Prime Power. I actually had a 12-year career. I started out as a Bradley mechanic. I only worked on tanks the whole time. I originally wanted to become a pilot, so bigger and better things. I re-enlisted and I transitioned into being a Black Hawk mechanic, which is a 15 Tango. Did that for about 4.5 years. Tried to re-enlist, and they said, no, we're overstrength. Go find something else. So I reached out to one of my previous NCOs at the time, a sergeant from the past, and he had already transitioned into Prime Power. He talked me into it, and I haven't looked back since. It's been a good time.
That is awesome.
I did about 6 years as that, with 12 years total.
Gotcha. Looking back, do you feel like you got a lot of practical application out of your time in the service? And if so, would you recommend folks kind of go into that or choose that as a career option?
I absolutely do. Not just Prime Power. I mean, Prime Power is very good, but just the military in general has a huge skill set that it's nowadays looking out on it. The industry doesn't give a lot of free skills. It's employer paid for, and they're very picky at that. But the military, they train you from the gate, and you have everything that you're supposed to have in order to do your job. And after that, it's just experience. So that was one big thing. And having three, MOSs, military occupational specialties, jobs in the military, I got a lot of good training out of it. It definitely taught me how to be a man, grow up. Stop acting like a child. It put me in, those are a lot of life skills that you need to succeed in this world. And, looking back on it, that was probably a lot of the biggest stuff that I got out of it. Yeah.
Awesome, man. That is, and it's super practical. My experience, as you know, we've talked offline about military and wholly aligned with where you're coming from that. So totally agree. So how in the heck did you become aware of field service after the fact? So you're getting ready to get out of the Army. You've got this Army Prime Power experience. How did you come in touch with field service and NETA for that matter?
Well, in about 2012, I transitioned to Prime Power, and I got done with the school in, I think, July of 2013. Went to Fort Belvoir as my first duty station, and I was there for about 3.5 years. While I was there, NETA had already approached Prime Power during that time. And, NETA and Prime Power, it's a mutual relationship. You're not going to stay in the military forever. So the Army's looking to help their guys out. And then at the same time, NETA, Prime Power is part of the Corps of Engineers. So NETA now has the Corps of Engineer, logos or what
Gotcha.
that essence behind them that they work together. And so it's a very mutual relationship between them. I still had to take the test like every other NETA Tech does. But my prior training definitely helped with it. I got my NETA 2 and passed that test, I think, in 2015. And then I didn't move on to my NETA 3 or 4 until after I had gotten out.
That is still, and it's really, really cool how you do see some of the symbiosis come from the civilian sector, kind of aligning well with the mechanical side, and of course the Army Corps of Engineers, and kind of giving you, I would say, a good foot up in your transition when you get out of the military, and kind of give you some direction.
Yeah.
Whereas we didn't necessarily have all that from our aspect, so I really appreciate the fact that they've done that for you guys.
Yeah, they were definitely. At the time I was kind of like, yeah, sure, why not? It's just, if the military is gonna help me pay, get it for free, then why not? I guess it's not gonna hurt me. And looking back on it, that was kind of, a very naive way to think about it. But I honestly didn't know any better, and it wasn't really, preached to us at the time as far as how important it could be. As field service, I wasn't really aware of that there was a field service after the Army. I was kind of already doing it. I was a mechanic before, and I was doing everything that most field service techs do. but it wasn't really called field service tech. You know, when you're in the military, they don't.
Right.
That's not really what it's called. You know, but when you get out,
Exactly.
that's what it actually becomes. Yeah.
And I fell in the same kind of. I wasn't aware it was an option or an industry that was really serviced, and it's one of those. It seems niche enough, but it's such a good fit for the skill sets that you guys get, especially from the Army Corps of Engineers and what my understanding of substation work and prime power and everything else. And speaking of, so you touched on field service. What did your field service journey look like post Army?
Well, after I got out of the Army, I transitioned out in 2018, and I found a company. I started early, and that was a very good move on my part, working on the transition. But I found a company, and I transitioned directly out. The term, separation leave or whatever you call it after you get done. You know, I had plenty of that saved up, so that was a good help to the transition. Um, uh, it's part of the planning process, I guess. But once I got out, I worked with a company called Power Solutions Group. It was a really good team that I worked with. I really enjoyed a lot of the guys there. It was a good place for me to get my bearings because I had a lot of the theory and the application. But what I didn't have was the industry components that they have now. When you're in the military, you're only working on military equipment, but when you're out in the industry, you can work on things from 50 years ago to the newest, latest and greatest technology, and everything in between with 100 different manufacturers across that timeline. So, that first company that I worked at was a really good place to get my roots. I had a boss that was really, really understanding of where I came from and where I need to transition to. He understood my background a little bit, so that really helped. And so at the beginning, I was just a field service tech, but I quickly became the lead tech for that office. About 4 months, I got my NETA 3 after that. And so before I even got out, into 2019, I was in NETA 3 as the lead technician, and really it was, the world was at my fingertips is the way I kind of look back on it. It was a pretty good process. The biggest thing I'd say that held me up during that time was learning the industry softwares and test equipment and stuff like that. Because as a prime power background or any heavily trained background like that, whether it's an EE or prime power or just a lot of training that you've devoted yourself towards, once you have that theory, everything else is going to come to you. You just have to figure out the software. But then in 2021, I took another position with CBS Field Services, and now I run the Nashville shop here in. I live in Clarksville, but the shop is in Nashville, and we have several locations throughout the country. But so we have a 5-man crew now, and so I'm kind of trying to step up into that managerial position and see what's that after that.
That is awesome. So, what are some of the things that you found to be super beneficial as far as pursuing the actual NETA side of the house? Like the accreditation, have you found this open up more opportunities, giving you some structure, some rigidity to kind of like your career path and advancement? What are some of those things that you found to be beneficial?
I would say structure could be a little bit, but well, we've hired some guys, and me looking, I made my NETA back in 2015, and I had a lot of training that some of the guys that we have on our team now don't have, and so now I can kind of look up and down and feel, kind of get a feel for that. I would say the structure's there, but the problem with the structure is that a lot of this training that you need in order to be successful in this industry isn't something that's easily acquired. So whether the structure's there or not, getting up that tier is still a challenge. I would say that the biggest thing that the NETA accreditation helps with a lot of people is usually 3 things. One is exposure. I mean, I'm on my LinkedIn, and the NETA 3, NETA 4 definitely helps reach out and network. It makes you more creditable in other people's eyes. That's a very good thing. Another thing is training. You have to have CTDs in order to maintain your NETA accreditation as a technician.
Quick question: what are those CTDs, or what does CTD mean? I'm not familiar with that.
Continuing
training and development, or something
along
those lines.
Continuing education development, or I can't remember what it is exactly.
Gotcha.
But it's a lot of certifications are like that. You have to maintain continuing education in order to keep your certificate. And
Absolutely.
as a NETA 2, I believe it's 24 every 3 years, and as a NETA 3, it's 48, and I think a NETA 4 is the same. And so, if you have your NETA 2 and your NETA 3 or NETA 4, then one of the biggest things that you can look forward to is training. Your employer has to provide training, or they're going to lose you as a NETA qualified technician. So that does help your career. And then the last thing, which almost every NETA technician cannot deny, is pay raises. I mean, pay raises are awesome. Everyone likes them, and the more you can say, bam, I am certified as this. People are like, all right,
Absolutely.
cool, and they pay very well to have those guys on their team because it's a very, I would say, tight knit industry, but it's also, like you said, it's very niche as well.
And I am seeing that just from a recruiting perspective as well. That extra, that level 2, the level 3, the level 4, definitely makes you guys a much more tangible commodity on the market, and allows you to pretty much almost not quite demand, but pretty much demand the salaries, commiserate to whatever levels you're at. And speaking of those levels, can you kind of walk us through, like, I am getting out of the military. I'm an Army Prime power bubble. And I wasn't as smart as Tom was. And I'm ready to go and pursue this newfound thing called NETA, assuming I didn't know about it. What would that track look like, to the best of your knowledge, and kind of the path from advancement from 1 through 4?
So, first off, just to lay it out there, the companies are NETA accredited and they maintain NETA certified technicians. So if you as a technician, if you end up leaving your company and you go to a company that is not NETA certified, your certification can fall off, and then you have to retake the test in the future. So level 2, 3, and 4 are certified by NETA. Level 1 is basically an entry level technician. If you're a NETA certified company, you hire a guy, he's going to be a test technician. He's an entry level guy. He's just trying to figure out the ropes. He's going to be a level 1 certified by the company, and he's not reportable to NETA for the most part. He doesn't have to take an exam to maintain that, and it is indefinite as long as you stay with the NETA certified company. But when you become your NETA 2, you have to take a test in order to get that. There's a qualification. I think it's 2 years in the industry. NETA 3 is 5 years in the industry, and a NETA 4 is 10 years in the industry. And your company has to validate that information with NETA prior to taking the test and getting your certification. You take the test. There's a 2, 3, and a 4, and level 2 is kind of like your journeyman guy. He can go out there. He can run a couple small things. At level 3 is usually he can typically operate by himself or with a small crew. And in a level 4 is the world's at your fingertips. You can operate big crews by yourself. You're expected to know how to research, find the answers that people need. So it's there's only 4 levels of certification, and from 1 being the start and 4 is the end. It's not too terrible, but the hardest part about all of them, honestly, is just taking the tests and passing the tests, because they are not easy tests. To add to that, on a side note, NICET is also another entity that does a
Yep.
very, it's very in line with how NETA progresses as well. And if you go to the NICET website, and that's NICET, NIC.
Yep. ET.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
If you go to their website, they specifically thank NETA on their website for helping them to build their accreditation as well, and their certification structure. But it's along the same lines, and they're both very good certifications. NICET will follow the technician, but NETA will follow the company. And if you leave your company as a technician, then you'll lose your certification unless you go to another NETA company. But NICET follows the technician, which is good for manufacturers, because manufacturers cannot be NETA. And so there's a lot of wild cards to play in there, depending on where you want to work, how you want to work, whether you want to work out in the field or for a manufacturer on equipment. How you want to do it could determine what kind of certification you chase. Me personally, I chase both just to make sure I got my
Absolutely.
my back pocket full in case.
makes yourself the most marketable you possibly can. So totally makes sense from that avenue. And,
Sure.
and definitely thank you for that, because I knew of NITA, but I didn't realize the correlation there and kind of the way that flows. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Another quick question. So we kind of talked through the NETA levels. What does a good technician look like? What do they do in their day-to-day, if that makes sense? Like, what kind of test equipment are you seeing? What general scope of equipment? I know there's a vast array of equipment out there that can possibly be worked on, but what would a traditional day kind of look like, if that makes sense?
Well, for level one, in all honesty, he's an entry level guy. He's expected to, open his eyes, pay attention, do as he's told for the most part. Maybe once in a while he'll pull out his computer and start learning how to, work on Excel and stuff like that. Maybe if we have some time on a job, because a lot of our job is on the job training, is when you're going to get trained, unless your supervisor or someone takes the time out of their day to spend that effort on you. But we try not to have a lot of shop time, so most of your training is in the field. And as an entry level guy, you just gotta honestly open your eyes. Maybe do some after hours studying if you can. It's your career at the end of the day. The journeyman level guy, NETA level 2, he's already proven that he kind of knows the industry. A lot of the test questions could be something like OSHA 10, and then also basic AC theory or DC theory. So he should know how to do insulation resistance testing by himself, contact resistance testing by himself, maybe some minor troubleshooting in there, trying to, like, it's not giving me a good reading. Well, he should know, how to figure out how to get a good reading out of it, or what the problem is. He should be able to do some basic test reports, and not expected to do relays and everything else. Some of these relays, I brought some of them with me just in case.
Sweet.
Relays,
Perfect.
Like these right here, Schweitzer SEL 501. He's not expected to know how to test that.
Gotcha.
Unless he's an EE and he's just already moving up the ranks, like he just ain't made it yet. But level 3 should be able to mostly operate by himself. You expect them to, if they don't know the answer, they know where to find it. They can chase the answers if they need to. They should have a pretty good fundamental of, theory-wise based on AC or DC testing. They should know a lot of power factor testing, transformers, circuit breakers, bus work. They should have been doing this for at least 5 years to make that certification anyways. So, there is a side note to the 5 years, which is you can also substitute some of that time for schooling if you have like an EE degree, and so you can accelerate that. But that also is a huge contributor to how much you know as well. And the NETA 4, he'll. In all honesty, if you read the NETA books, it says in there that a NETA 3 or a NETA 4 must be on a job at all times to maintain the crew. So NETA 2s and 1s don't operate by themselves, but the 3s and the 4s can supervise the crews. And they should always have a 3 or a 4 on site. A 4 can, like if we have a project that we're running down in just south of Nashville right now, and it's a big project, multiple switchgear lineups, and then a whole other area with 2 more switchgear lineups, and I'm kind of managing all of that for the testing that goes along with it, and that could be the life of a NETA 4. So you would almost, I guess you could almost say a NETA 4 is almost kind of alludes to like project management, larger scale, yes, sir.
Moving parts and pieces, ops. Now, do you still get to do a lot of the technical stuff as a NETA 4 as well, kind of for your own proficiency, or is it mainly typically more going to be in the training and instructional side, or what is your relationship like from a 4 to a 1 to a 2 look like? Is it mainly oversight, or are you still in the gear turning knobs and testing stuff?
I would say a NETA 1, 2, and a 1 and 2 guaranteed should always be in the field. I mean, if they're not working, they're not making money for the company. I can see that they have some overhead time in the shop or whatnot to get their bearings, get their life together, their vehicles, or cleaning test equipment, whatever might need to be done. But NETA 3, that one's kind of, NETA 3 and 4 they approach the boundary where they have a lot more leeway in what their company needs to accomplish the missions as well. So,
Gotcha.
I manage the shop, the team, and production as well. So, I can choose where I want to be, how I want to be. So
Very cool.
that's and some companies don't run that way. Some companies will have someone that's in charge of production management and then a sales team, and then all the NETA everythings are out in the field, and they're always on the schedule in production. So, I mean,
Gotcha.
it just depends on your company's management and structure and how they're building it. Me personally, I kind of like, being able to say, all right, well, look, we're just going to take a day off. We're all going to go to the shop. I found these 3 things in the past month that we're all not really quite
Yes.
catching, and we can just do theory training for a day,
Awesome.
but I understand that not every company can afford that or has that time. And, they have clients as well that they have to meet deadlines.
Of course. Dude, that's such good knowledge. And I've got a list of questions here, and I've got one more that I'm going to kind of leave you with here. So, from a prime power perspective, what advice would you give to junior folks that are looking to get out? Doesn't have to necessarily be NETA. And if so, would you recommend that they follow that career path, getting out, or just, for instance, I know nuclear electricians, mates, and folks in the Navy are kind of relatable in the translatability of the skill set. With that being said, what advice would you give to those junior folks getting ready to make that transition?
I would say, if you got the theory for like prime power, Navy nuke side for the most part, if you got the theory, that'll carry you to the end. The biggest thing is to make sure that you really understand it. Um, I I mean, the theory is going to be your walking path for all of this. Every time you have a problem out in the field or a customer or a client or anything, it's going to carry you. Everything else will fall into place. It's just a matter of transition. Planning is always going to be a good thing. Making sure that you, before your transition and you get out, that you do what you want. But I would say honestly, out of all of it, the biggest thing is going to be your passion. Don't try to go into a job if you don't enjoy electrical theory and prime power was just paying the bills. Then find your passion and
Yes.
and chase that, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's best to be happy working. Happy, if you're always happy at your job and you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I absolutely love my job, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. So at the end of the day, when you look on all of that, then I'm not so worried about how hard it is to transition, because I know that I'll make the pieces fit because I'm happy to do it in the first place. So find what you love, and then absolutely plan, chase it, let your theory fill in all the blanks.
Dude, that is some solid advice, and I echo that same sentiment. Always try to follow your passion, assuming that you can, pay the bills with where you're at, and that's kind of how we ended up in the recruiting game. That happened to be my niche and where I enjoy and find passion in helping people that way. So very much align on those. And thank you so much for taking the time, Tom, for hopping on the call today. Super
Sure.
sage advice. I hope it benefits everybody in the group. We'll be putting out a YouTube video with this, and I'll be breaking it into segments for everyone to kind of get some more knowledge out of it with some reuse. But again, thank you so much for your time.